Welcome back to the Rebuilt Parish podcast. On today's episode, we've got a guest for you that's connected to both Nativity and Rebuilt. It's Charlie Hiebler, and he's the Director of Stewardship for both Church of the Nativity and for Rebuilt. Today, you're going to get to hear all about Charlie's years of experience in both the financial world and in the giving world, and learn some of the ways that he helps people along that path of discipleship. We'll see you inside the episode. Well, hey, Charlie, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today.
Thank you, Melissa. It's wonderful to be here.
I'm excited. We were chatting a couple months ago about this and said, we've got to get you on the podcast in the new year. And we're excited that you get to be the first podcast of the new year.
That's great. I'm really excited to be here and to work with everybody and kind of share some information and hopefully it's helpful.
Well, this is exciting because you are one of our newer team members. You know, you've been on the team for just under a year. You came right in time for conference, which was perfect. But before all of that, you spent years in the world of stewardship and development. So can you share a bit about your background and what first drew you into this type of work?
Sure, Melissa. Well, I've had a really interesting career. After graduating from Loyola University, Maryland, I worked for 11 years in banking and finance and, kind of right out of college. And that kind of gave me a sense or an idea about, working with people and their finances. And then I was invited to return back to my alma mater, Loyola University, Maryland, where I spent 19 years working in both advancement, development, stewardship, as well as in admissions. And so over that 19 years, I really had the chance to be able to experience a lot when it came to higher ed giving, which is a little different than, kind of giving in the church world. But higher ed giving kind of gave me that experience. And so, I really do feel that, stewardship and development, they're really at the heart of it is mission work. And if, that work of connecting with people and, kind of their desire to make a difference with organizations' mission, it's really important to kind of build those relationships. And I really found a real passion for the work at Loyola. As I helped alumni, parents, donors, feel like that they were part of the university family. And so, in the spirit of St. Ignatius Loyola and the Jesuits, there's a spiritual concept called the magis, the more. And I found that people are hungry to be part of something bigger than themselves.
Yes.
And this work does exactly that. It allows people to be able to give and be bigger than themselves, be part of an organization or part of a mission that's bigger than themselves. And so it's really satisfying work. And, I've really enjoyed kind of getting to learn it, getting to know it, getting to be a part of it, because when it's done right, you can see some real transformation and some real incredible things happen for your organization.
Yes, definitely. Charlie, one of the things that I got from that is that you now get to be the one to help people feeling like they are a part of the more, to be a part of something bigger than themselves. And, we talk about giving as an act of worship, but this takes it to a different level, helping them really feel like they are connected and a part of something.
Exactly. And that's part of the role of the development director is to help people be able to kind of explore and discern and pray about how they want to utilize the gifts that God's given us, to be able to help others and help an organization to be able to thrive and succeed. And so it's really fascinating to be able to have those conversations with people to discover, kind of where their heart is and how they want to be able to support the organization.
Charlie, I love that because when I think about what the holdup is within the parish with asking for money, and we're going to talk about some of these things here in a second, I think about how as some parish leaders feel like it's scary or it's hard to talk to people about giving, but the way you put it, you make it seem like it's such a joy to get to help people connect their gifts, their financial gifts, with a bigger cause and a bigger purpose.
Exactly. The way that I look at it, Melissa, is that everything that we have is from God.
Yes.
And so as a person who is working for an organization and working in development and stewardship, my role is not to ask people for money. My role is to be able to help facilitate the conversation that they have with God about how to utilize the gifts and the resources and the blessings that God has given them and how to direct that. And so it's really not about money. It's about a ministry. It's about building relationships, having conversations, learning about what their passions are, and then going from there to help fulfill, what their desire is in terms of utilizing those blessings and resources that they've been given by God. And so it's
good.
really, it's very different. And again, coming from higher education, it wasn't like that in higher education. But, doing it for the church, it is really a different type of stewardship and development. And really is a way of being able to make those connections and kind of seeing where people's hearts are and helping to just guide them and lead them to be able to help support a mission, an organization, a project, whatever it might be, a campaign, and kind of instilling in them and creating in them this burning for passion and for success in that. Because if you believe in it, they're going to believe in it. And so, it's really important to be able to convey that when you're having those conversations.
Definitely. Now, you are now serving as Director of Development for both Church of the Nativity and Rebuilt. So let's talk a little bit about that role. You shared a little bit about what you get to do, and that's that ministry part. That's that getting to know people, getting to help them in their prayer and discernment. So tell us a little bit more about how you do all of that. And then I want to know what part of it gives you the most joy.
Sure. That's a great question. So, I've been doing it since March, and I joined this past March. And I've been a parishioner at Nativity for the past 9 years. So my wife and I, when we moved to the area, we were looking for a church, and we found Nativity. Some actually friends of ours invited us to be able to come to Nativity and experience Mass there. And we just fell in love with the community, with the music, the message, the ministry. I have 3 children, and every Sunday before we moved to Nativity, we used to argue with them to get out of bed and go to church. And we started coming to Nativity, and those arguments stopped. And,
that's the best.
and it was because they were finding fulfillment and connection and growing in their own faith. And so all 5 of us have participated in ministries here at Nativity. We've gotten to know the staff. It's just been an amazing faith experience for us. And so when an opportunity came about, I actually was invited by a member of the Nativity team to explore, kind of these positions that were available, the Director of Development position for Nativity and for Rebuilt. And they were 2 separate roles at the time. And so I had a conversation with our friend Tom Corcoran, and Tom and I talked about the 2 roles. And we really discussed that if you had someone who knew Nativity and also knew about Rebuilt, could one person do both roles? Because there is such an overlap and such a benefit to being able to be in parish life, but also being able to work with Rebuilt. And so, kind of having that local parish experience, but also being able to, influence and help other parishes to be able to grow and make disciples. And so we, kind of went back and forth, and Tom literally rewrote the job description and, kind of combined the 2 roles into one. And so I started in March and have really, really loved being here. And, one of the biggest joys that I have found is that kind of the day-to-day work is, really helping to change and transform lives. And if you keep that as your focus, that, this work is not about dollars and cents. It's about transformation. It's about lives changed. It's about people growing closer in relationship to Christ. It's really about, finding passion, finding that joy, and every day I find this, incredible opportunity to be able to work with and talk with faith-filled people that I've really had the pleasure of meeting and, talking about their faith, talking about how God has been working in their lives, and talking about how they want to utilize the blessings that God has given them to be able to help support the work that we do. And there is no greater joy than that. That if you can actually bring someone closer to God through giving and through that conversation, that is making disciples, and the work is so rewarding because of that.
Definitely. And Charlie, where do you get to have those conversations? How do you connect with these different givers? What does that look like?
Yeah, one of the most important things that I started doing when I joined the team is I'm out on the concourse. I'm out in, the narthex or the vestibule, whatever you call it at your church. I'm out there. I'm meeting people. I'm talking with them when they are coming to mass on Saturday or Sunday. And one of the things that's really an advantage of working in the church and doing advancement work and stewardship and development work in the church is that people come to us.
Yeah.
So many times in higher education, it's not about that. It's about you going to them. It's about, if you work for another nonprofit, it's about you going out and finding donors or givers that are going to help support your organization. When it comes to working in a church, they're coming to us every
week.
Every week. Exactly. And so it's just a great opportunity to be able to, kind of learn about who they are. And, not only that, but also we don't only have them come to mass on Sunday or Saturday, but they're also serving. They're also kind of taking this leap of discipleship and growing through their experience with your church. And so, it is a great opportunity to be able to be out there. And I'll tell you, I visited a parish not too long ago, and I talked with their director of development, and she was telling me that on Sundays, she was kind of in a back office helping to count money for the offertory. And I said, you've got to be out front. You've got to be meeting people.
Have a volunteer count that money. Get out there.
Exactly. You've got to be building those relationships. And so one of the things that I do is when I make those connections on, the concourse or outside as people are coming or going from mass, I then reach out to them afterwards and I ask them if we can grab coffee or if we could go to breakfast or lunch. And really sit down and spend time with them. And I think that that's really the important part of this job in this role is that you're spending time with people. You're learning about them. You're learning, like we talked about before, their passion, what's going to, move them and how, Nativity or how, their partnership with Rebuilt is helping to transform them. And, once you can find out how that works and how it's happening with them, with their families, I will tell you that the conversations get pretty deep pretty quickly.
Wow.
And that's one of the things that I didn't realize, or I really took for granted that, in terms of the difference between kind of ministry and stewardship and development work in a church versus doing it in higher education. I'll be having conversations with people and, they will start telling me about challenges they've had, about challenges with family and with, experiences that are really heavy on their heart. And so, we pray together and I, tell them that I'm here to pray with them. And I've had individuals that I've met with break down into tears over our conversations. And, it's not because of money. It's not because of finances. It's because of, kind of their passions and their challenges and their struggles. And that's what we're here for too. That being a development and stewardship director does not mean that we only focus on finances and building support for programs. It's about people and building those relationships. And one of the things I was told a long time ago in development from one of my mentors is that if you build relationships with people, you never need to ask for money. And I have taken that to heart because I really do feel that the work that I do it's not about money. It's about relationships. It's about people. It's about growth. And now working for the church, it's about making disciples and, utilizing their God-given blessings and talents and resources to be able to help them grow in discipleship.
When leadership is healthy, mission moves forward. When it's unclear or disconnected, everything stalls. That's why we created the Rebuilt Leadership Self-Evaluation, a simple, powerful tool to help your parish pause, reflect, and realign around what matters most. Inside, you'll walk through core questions about your mission, the clarity of your team, and the metrics you use to know whether you're actually accomplishing the work God entrusted to you. You'll name what's working, identify the gaps, and begin shaping practical next steps. Quick wins, long-term priorities, and the big rocks that will strengthen your parish leadership from the inside out. If you're ready for more focus, healthier teams, and leadership rooted in mission, download the Leadership Self-Evaluation today at rebuiltparish.com/leadership evaluation. Definitely. And Charlie, when I hear you saying that, people just open up and it gets deep quickly, because that's a little bit of the difference between church world and just other nonprofits or, public education. That's what's different, is then it becomes ministry. That's where then I love that you can just pray together right there, and then you can continue praying for them. And as your role is so relationship based, I just have a feeling you're probably reaching back out and following up to see how they're doing, or assuring them that you're continuing to pray for them too.
That's absolutely right. And the other thing that you have to keep in mind too is, what are the other resources that you have at your parish to be able to help people?
Yes.
And so I met with a woman who has medical issues and is restricted to being at home. And so I met her at her home, and I brought along with me Bob Bolter, who is our, works in discipleship and works with our healing ministry and our prayer ministry and our Eucharistic ministers who go out to help those that are unable to come to Mass. And I brought him with me. And, that was really beneficial because we were able to identify that the person I was meeting with, had needs, but she didn't know how to ask for help. And so, Bob was able to explain all the different ways that Nativity could help support her at home through, bringing the Eucharist to her weekly and, praying for her and healing prayer. And so, Bob's been in touch with her, and I've been in touch with her, and, we continue the relationship, and that's been really special. And I do that, in different ways. If someone says that they'd like to serve and give of their time before making a gift or giving of their resources, that's perfectly fine. Like my job is helping people to grow in discipleship. And so that's been really great to be able to make those connections with other members of the team and that kind of thing. If someone wants to join a small group, I know that, you've had Dave Fleury on before, and, Dave is great at working with them to get them involved in small groups. So just utilizing other members of your team to be able to help in this work. And the one thing that I will tell you is that, and I've talked about this with both the Nativity and the Rebuilt teams, the work of stewardship and development is not one person's role. Right. It's all of our roles, because it's all those interactions, it's all those conversations, it's all those relationships that everyone on the staff has with our parishioners that helps to grow discipleship and make stewardship and development so much easier.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Okay. Let's dive into that, Charlie. So we know that stewardship can be a loaded word for some people. So how do you define it in a way that reflects the heart of the gospel?
Sure. Well, stewardship is, as we talked about, it's kind of framing it around the blessings that we've been given by God. And so if you keep that in mind, that stewardship is kind of the grateful response of a disciple who recognizes that everything we have is a gift from God. And then what my role is to just help facilitate that conversation. between the person and God, because that conversation can sometimes be tough. We're not used to, asking God about how to, utilize the blessings that he's given to us. Our prayers to God most of the time are about what God should be doing for us.
Yes.
Instead of like how we can be doing for God. And so, God entrusts us with his gifts and blessings and inviting us to steward them faithfully. And so that's kind of where stewardship comes in, that, as a stewardship director, it's really the person that I'm meeting with who is the steward, because they're stewarding the blessings that God has given them. And all I'm trying to do is just help to focus that, or help them to be able to realize where that steward, where them being a good steward needs to go. So, it's not kind of holding on tightly to those blessings. It's letting them realize that they're meant to be given, that God doesn't just give them to us to hold on to them, but that he gives them to us to share. And so our lives and talents and the resources, they become most meaningful when we offer them back to him in service and generosity. And so, we've talked about, in the past about how, we're not kind of looking at, the blessings God's given us to build a bank here on earth.
Right.
We're looking at how we can utilize those blessings to create a bank in heaven. And so it's all about kind of stewarding those blessings from God, because we know that we have eternal life through God. And so God wants us to utilize those blessings, not just here on earth, but he wants us to create a bank in heaven.
Well, he tells us don't store up your treasures here on earth where rust and moth destroy, but store up your treasures in heaven. And so I love the way you connect that with more modern day terms. Look, a bank, rather than focusing on the bank here, focus on that bank in heaven where life is eternal.
That's right. That's right.
Now, Charlie, I have a fun question for you, because you've been a Nativity parishioner for 9 years. So you've gotten to see some culture shift happen. So Nativity has grown in parish culture and has really focused on gratitude and generosity. So from your perspective as a parishioner and now behind the scenes, what kind of helped to shift that culture over the years? Because we've got a lot of parish leaders who want to be making a shift in culture just like that.
Sure. I think one of at the heart of it, like we mentioned before, is mission. And so Nativity's mission statement is love God, love others, and make disciples. And so one of the key ways Nativity's grown into a parish culture marked by gratitude and generosity is by integrating stewardship into discipleship. Yes. And so, discipleship's a journey, Melissa, and we want other people and we want to offer them a pathway to becoming a more fully devoted follower of Jesus. And so the way we do that at Nativity is through what we call steps. So we have 5 steps to discipleship, and maybe you've talked about them here before.
We have, but go ahead and give them a quick review if you want to.
Sure. So the 5 steps of discipleship are serve, tithing and giving, engaging in a small group, prayer and the sacraments, and then sharing your faith. And so in those steps of discipleship, you can hear that tithing and giving is that T, that second step. And so, we really feel that incorporating tithing and giving as a part of discipleship, it forms hearts, as well as strengthens our community. It fuels our mission, and it transforms lives, both our lives and those that we serve. And so, it's really kind of incorporating all of that into the culture of the parish that helps to, move things forward. And the other thing that we do really well, and Father Michael White, he does this really well, is he will preach about tithing and giving from the pulpit, but we don't do it all the time, and that's one of the things that I think is also different about Nativity is that we do a stewardship weekend, one weekend a year. And so, you're not hearing about an ask for resources and finances all the time. Mm-hmm. It's really focused to one weekend a year And there are other opportunities that people know that they can give and give to the offertory and, give weekly or biweekly or, have recurring giving, which we also have incorporated, which I think is really important to kind of the success of the parish from a stewardship and development standpoint. But it's really about, kind of that path of discipleship. And so being able to have people, be able to participate in that and, serving and giving go hand in hand. And so, when you're giving of your time and you're giving of your talents, the next logical thing is to then also give of your treasure. And so, we kind of look at serving and giving in tandem with one another, because it's so important to that discipleship path.
Charlie, one of the things you also mentioned was that stewardship weekend. And I just have to share because it came across my feed the other day and I had a really good giggle about it. And it was, I know that you make different videos every year for stewardship weekend. And you were the star of the latest stewardship weekend video. So maybe just take, like a minute just to kind of share what the purpose of those videos are and maybe just kind of share why humor is so important in it.
Sure. So we made a video this year and we kind of parodied a progressive insurance commercial with Dr. Rick. And I think that I was kind of asked to be in it because I guess there's some resemblance between me and Dr. Rick.
Well, when you dressed exactly like him, there was a lot of resemblance.
And I put a mustache on.
And the fake mustache really helped.
Exactly. So I'll tell you something that's funny about that. There were a lot of people that came up to me after that weekend that said, Charlie, we really loved you in the video, but don't ever grow a mustache. So
oh my gosh, I love it.
I told them, no, don't fear. Like I'm not a mustache kind of guy. But the reason that we kind of interject humor and we have fun with it is because stewardship should be fun. One of the things that God talks about is that, you should have joy, that giving should bring joy about. And so, we kind of do that through creating these fun videos that, kind of show how things are happening at the parish and, how ministry works and, how, the impact that our stewardship makes. And, we do it in a fun way because laughter is a great way to get people connected, with the parish, as well as make them feel comfortable about kind of what we talked about before, stewardship not being the most comfortable topic to talk about. Yeah. And so when we can poke fun at ourselves, as well as, kind of make it a little more accessible and add humor into the conversation, it just makes it work so much better.
Oh, I love it. I think I would love to be sitting and watching when that comes across the screen sometime, because just to hear everybody's responses, because I think that it's done really well and in a positive way and in a way that does make people want to be cheerful givers, because that's what we're called to be. And I just love that you incorporate humor in that, but yet still are teaching something through it too.
Exactly.
So
And I don't take any credit for the creative aspect. We've got a great team here at Nativity that comes up with the concepts and the script and all of that. But it was so much fun to be able to film it, work with some of our parishioners, to be able to, kind of create this video and then be able to share it with everyone on Stewardship Weekend. And the laughter, and the humor, and it was just a lot of fun. And then what we did during Stewardship Weekend is once we showed the video, it was at the very end of Mass, we then all came out as a staff and we thanked everyone, because that's really the important thing about stewardship too, is that it's about gratitude. And, we cannot do the work that we do by ourselves. Right. We require other people to help us to do it and to support it. And so to be able to thank people and express that gratitude in a way that, the whole staff was behind, was really exciting. And so we came out on the altar with signs and expressing gratitude and just really having a great time with it. Again, just showing people joy and demonstrating that. And I think that's one of the things that's really key too, to what makes Nativity have this culture of generosity and stewardship, is that, our staff is just all positive about it. And so, we're really excited for it. And that it just, brings, like you mentioned before, joy, into the conversation, which just, makes it so much more inviting to people to participate in.
Definitely. Now, Charlie, there's going to be parishes out there who are like, wait, hold on. I'm just at the beginning. This video kind of sounds complicated. So for our parish leaders who are listening, what are some simple, practical ways that they can start cultivating that spirit of stewardship right within their own parishes?
Yeah, that's a great question, Melissa. What I would say is first and foremost, start with gratitude. That it's not about asking people for money. It's about thanking them for their gifts that they're sharing. And so start with gratitude. And that's really simple. That can be anything from the pastor, during a homily or a message, saying thank you from the pulpit. It can be note cards. It can be an email thanking them. It can be done in a video. It can be done a lot of different ways. But really, it's just, expressing gratitude and saying thank you for their support in the work that we're doing in the mission. I'd also say that it's about helping parishioners be able to see how their time, talent, and treasure serve the mission of the church. So, what is their impact as an individual, as a parishioner, as a member of the parish? How are they impacting the parish? And then communicating clearly how kind of gifts can make that impact. So, I've said, and one of the things I've learned about, stewardship and development all these years is that a big part of what we do is communications.
Yes.
And so it's how we communicate and the words that we use and, kind of the tone that we use when it comes to communicating about stewardship and development. And a big part of that is just offering multiple ways for people to be able to, kind of give and serve and be able to make an impact on the parish. And so, kind of creating that message or that tone, that, culture, of stewardship and development and incorporating that into all of your messaging is really important. And again, it takes time. So it's not something that's going to happen right away. But the other thing too is I'll say just make stewardship relational. And so again, it's not about asking people for money. It's about building relationships. And so, I will have conversations with people that I don't ask them for anything. And I'll even tell them that I to kind of break the ice, I'll say, I'm not going to ask you for anything. What I really want to do is I want to ask your advice and I want to hear your story and I want to learn about, how God is moving through you. And so, those types of conversations and word choices are really important when it comes to communicating about stewardship and development. I'd also say, like I mentioned before, you have to be visible, so one of the smallest things that you can do is just be outside, be with the people, get to know them, have them get to know you. Starting here in March, again, I was a parishioner for 9 years, but I participated on the creative tech team. And so I was always behind the scenes.
Yes.
So during Mass.
In a black shirt, hiding
exactly.
in the shadows.
I was supposed to be like incognito. So people, weren't supposed to see me, and that was kind of the idea. But one of the things that I really learned when I started is that I need to be out there and I need to be meeting people and again, just learning their stories. And one of the advantages to church stewardship, like we talked about before, is that people come to us. And so you have to take advantage of that. And so really, kind of be out there and not just you, but your whole team. If you have the ability to be out there and greeting people on the weekends, that's helps to create this welcoming culture, and many times I'm just out there with our greeting ministers and just, kind of side by side with them, welcoming people as they come in the door. And then from that, people will stop and say, "Hi, Charlie, I'm so-and-so." And then we just start a conversation. So it's really important.
Charlie, you're saying some things that I'm hearing are some common themes. So number one, work the weekend, right? And be visible.
Absolutely.
On the weekend is important. And number two, I'm hearing you talk about how connecting with how they're giving and serving is making an impact on the parish. And that goes back to what we talked about in the beginning. people want to be a part of something bigger than themselves. And so
That's right.
by you helping them connect the dots, maybe they haven't seen that this is a way that they're making an impact. But when you show them, hey, I just want to say thank you by your family giving and by you serving in the Next Gen program, you've helped to impact these 30 kids here in this group or whatever it is. But you're kind of showing them and reaffirming for them that they're on track when it comes to the discipleship path too.
That's right. That's right. And Melissa, one of the things that they say is that generosity multiplies.
Yes.
And so, as you work with one person and you have a conversation about, kind of generosity and what's on their heart and where they want to, steward God's gifts, it's really important to then also ask them, who else could I be talking with?
Yes.
Who else might, benefit from, this type of conversation. And so that has helped me to be able to meet more people faster. Because I'm being recommended by others. And so, they're friends and, everyone kind of has a church group that they, are friends with. And so, being able to connect with them and be able to share the same message is really helpful. So there's, and then once you have those coffees, breakfasts, lunches, it's all about follow up. So
Yes.
it's all about, again, that gratitude. You can never say thank you enough. And so, one of the things that I try and do is in every one of my emails to someone that I've met with, or even someone that I haven't met with that I know has been a giver to the parish, is I thank them right off the bat. Thank them for being, for choosing their, Nativity, to be members of Nativity. There's a lot of choices out there, of parishes that they can go to and be a part of. But thank you for choosing to be a part of Nativity. Thank you for, kind of the ministry or the service that they do. And then thank you for their support of the mission and their partnership and investment. And so, those are all very simple ways to be able to start, kind of building a culture of stewardship and development at your parish.
Hi, I'm Maria Politano from Rebuilt Parish. If you're longing to see real renewal in your parish, but you're not sure where to begin, you don't have to walk that path alone. Through Rebuilt Coaching, your parish is paired with 2 dedicated partner coaches who walk alongside you, encourage you, and help you to stay focused on what matters most, making disciples and strengthening your parish culture. We guide you through the Rebuilt anchors with a clear course and coaching rhythm that gives you structure, support, and practical steps you can take right away. If you're ready for clarity, direction, and a team committed to your parish's growth, learn more about Rebuilt Coaching at rebuiltparish.com/coaching.
That's so good. Now, you've had the chance to witness incredible stories of transformation through generosity. So can you think of maybe one in particular story that stands out, maybe one that captures like the power of stewardship done well? And of course, we're not going to say any names here and disclose anybody's personal information, but if you've just got a story that might inspire the parish listeners.
Yeah, one of the most inspiring stories for me is actually an anonymous donor. So not even knowing who they are. But for the Rebuilt Conference this past year, we had an anonymous donor who is a member of Nativity and also someone who supports Rebuilt. And they made a gift to be able to help support anyone from the Archdiocese of Baltimore and parish leadership to be able to attend the conference. And that was such a huge blessing because that gift brought in over 200 parish leaders from the Archdiocese of Baltimore who were able to experience the conference and the joy and the excitement and the inspiration that came from the conference. And out of that, we've already had 5 parishes who have agreed to be in coaching with Rebuilt, which has been fantastic. And there's another 15 parishes that are considering partnering with Rebuilt. And so, that is amazing. And it's really not just that. It's not about, the parishes, kind of partnering with Rebuilt. That's the important piece. What's really the important piece is that single act of generosity has had the potential to impact thousands of people.
Yes. Yeah.
So, helping them grow deeper in their relationship with Christ or encountering him for the first time, it's an example of how one gift given with faith and love can have this ripple effect outward to transform lives and strengthen communities. And so, that to me is a huge impact, that it's not just impacting parishes or an organization, it's impacting people, and when that person made that gift, they probably didn't think that all the way through, that they would have an impact on potentially thousands of people who are going to have their parishes renewed, or are going to experience new things because of attending that conference.
Oh my gosh, for sure. When I think about those leaders from the Archdiocese of Baltimore who came, getting to interact with some of them, it was, first of all, they were pure joy that they got to be there. Some of them were like, I'm just a volunteer and they're letting me come. It's such, how amazing is this? And now I learned this and I can't wait to take this back to my parish. So parishioners and parish leaders who would never have, maybe their parish didn't have the funds to send them to conference, so they wouldn't have come, or maybe they didn't even know about us, or maybe they would send one person, but not a whole team of 10. But now all of those individuals were getting filled with the Holy Spirit, because I don't know how you could be there and not be filled with the Holy Spirit,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
And they got poured into and they learned. I mean, when I think about what you just said, Charlie, how thousands of people, and I would argue that even tens of thousands of people are going to be impacted now, because as each take it back to their parishes and they start making more disciples in their parishes, and then those disciples, we know what's going to happen. They're going to make more disciples. Like, it's just going to continue. And what a blessing that one gift is going to have on the community in Baltimore alone, but then beyond that too.
Exactly. And, I'll share another story, which was really touching for me. And this just kind of talks about kind of a different way that people can give, because, generosity is not just about cash. It's not just about making gifts, of money. But I met with a woman who is a parishioner of Nativity, and Nativity right now has the Wonder campaign, which is happening, which is a amazing campaign where we're looking to grow our next generation programs and space provided for them, as well as we're renovating our chapel and we're creating space for our small groups to be able to meet. And so, really exciting opportunity here at the parish. And I had a woman that I was meeting with who reached out, and she said that she had her grandmother's engagement ring, that she was looking to be able to do something with it that is going to help the next generation. Oh. And so she wanted to donate that ring to the parish for the Wonder campaign. And so, she was really emotional when she gave it to me, and, it really, what was a gift of love and, and kind of her commitment to the parish. And that really touched me, that it can be something as, it's almost easier to put a couple dollars into a collection basket, but it's really, kind of challenges us to be able to, see how people are making those decisions to be able to share their blessings that they've been given with the parish, with a campaign, with whatever it might be. And so, just the kind of having her heart in that gift was really, really emotional for me, really touching, but also very generous, and something that I will never forget. Just having that conversation with her, and being able to see her talk about her grandmother and how her grandmother loved children, and that she wanted to make that gift a part of that.
I love that. As when we think about it, some people, I mean, to take something like a family heirloom like that, it's not like, oh, my grandmother gave me her old china that I don't care about, right? Like,
that's right.
It's a family heirloom that holds meaning for her, that she's willing to give that for the next generation. I mean, that is how stewardship is moving hearts right there. What a great example.
That's right.
Thank you.
Right. Yeah.
Now, Charlie, as we look ahead, what gives you hope about the future generosity of the church, and how can our listeners be a part of that mission?
Yeah, sure. I really think that what gives me hope is kind of this enduring desire of people to make a difference, to be a part of something greater than themselves. I see parishioners, young and old, responding to God's call with generosity of their time, talent, and treasures. I see communities coming together to support ministries that are transforming lives, feeding the hungry, educating children, bringing people closer to Christ. Generosity is not dwindling, and I know that if you look at like the stats and you hear about, things that are out there in the world of stewardship and development, that people don't give like they used to, I think it's evolving. It's becoming more creative and definitely more relational. That, we're not just asking someone to make a transaction with us. We're asking them to be transformed by the experience. And I definitely, think that it's, generosity is also more deeply rooted in discipleship now, especially in church world. And so, what I would ask those that are, on the podcast here to do is just pray about it. That's one of the best ways that God calls us to be able to talk about our blessings and our gifts, is to ask God how he wants us to use the gifts that he's entrusted to us.
Yes.
And so prayer is important. I'd also say, give intentionally. So consider a consistent gift of time, talent, or treasure, big or small, it doesn't matter, but just give intentionally, because, a joyful giver, as we mentioned before, is really important. Share your story. All of us have a story. And so in the conversations that I have with people, what helps me connect with them is that I'm a parishioner. I'm a Christ follower. I am someone who is also struggling and has challenges. And, sharing those stories about myself, about my family, about faith, being transparent, that is something that's really important. And again, helps build that relationship and inspires others by showing how generosity's shaped my faith and impacted, how I feel like I've impacted others. I'd also say, one of the things that is important is to engage others. So, encourage family and friends and parishioners to participate in ministries and get involved in their church. That's a really important aspect also of stewardship and development, that, it's about that discipleship path. So being able to get involved. And then most importantly, is I'd say that when you're exploring kind of starting a campaign or, some type of fundraising initiative, that you lead with your heart.
Yeah.
And, I will, when I first started in this role, a few weeks in, I actually had a conversation with a pastor who told me that every time that he needs to talk with a parishioner about giving, he feels like he needs to leave his heart at the door. And, it kind of gets back to that whole, stewardship can be really uncomfortable for people.
Yeah.
And so what I encouraged him to do is don't leave your heart at the door.
Yeah.
You need to lead with your heart. That if you believe that what's best for your parish and for your parishioners is whatever that initiative is or whatever that campaign is, then you need to lead and set the example of, putting your treasure and, in a place where your heart will follow. That's something that is in scripture, in Matthew. And he tells us to be able to, that where you put your treasure, your heart will also be. And so how better way to be able to go into a conversation about stewardship than to lead with your heart?
Yeah.
Because if your heart's there, it's going to be a lot easier for others to be able to see their heart there too, and help to support whatever that initiative is. So, every act of generosity is really a step in building the kingdom of God. And by living faithfully and giving generously, each of us can help the church thrive for generations to come. And that's really the message here, is that it's not about what's happening today. It's not about what happened in the past. It's about creating a church that is thriving for generations to come. And so, our small slice of what we do as development and stewardship officers for a parish helps to make that happen.
Definitely. Wow, Charlie, you gave so many wonderful nuggets, some great examples that I just know our parish leaders that are listening today were taking notes and have so many great ideas to take back to their parishes. So thank you for sharing your wisdom and your years of experience with everyone today.
Absolutely, Melissa. It has been a pleasure. And I'll even take it a step further that if anyone has any questions or needs further advice, please email me. Charlie@rebuiltparish.com. Pretty easy to remember. So just email me. I'd love to hear from you. If I can help out your parish in any way when it comes to building the kingdom of God and, growing disciples, then I'm here to help. So please let me know how I can be of assistance. But it's been great spending time with you, Melissa, and with everyone. And I just, hope everyone has a great year ahead and is blessed by God immensely. And, that there are so many ways that we can help, bring those blessings into the church and into Christ.
Well, Charlie, thank you again. And to our listeners, thank you. And we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.